Hello everyone, my name is Krisan Wismer and I'm a retired United Airline captain. I have been an ISA member since 1988. I am not going to tell you how Emily Warner became the first woman hired at an airline today because we have all been inspired by her amazing story. I met Emily on the bench jump seat of a UPS DC-8 in 1989, shivering all the way. I'm sure you cargo gals know what I'm talking about. For the next 30 years, my life was enriched by Emily and her friendship. She and I became together because we loved to fly and wanted to encourage more women to love flying too. Emily was a mentor to me and she was a role model, the perfect role model. She always helped promote women pilots. Emily presented me with my ISA Captains Club plaque at the 20th ISA conference in Las Vegas in 1998. She also helped the ISA Airline Scholarship Program by administering a 737 rating to one of our ISA scholarship winners while I was in the right seat. That's how I got to fly with Emily, even though she was in the jump seat. Over the years, I had the privilege to attend some amazing events that recognized Emily for all of her accomplishments. She was inducted into the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame in 2002. I attended the ceremony at the National Aviation Hall of Fame when Emily gave the acceptance speech for Harriet Quimby's induction in 2004. I went to California when she was honored at the Living Legends of Aviation ceremony in 2008. I have been to several Wings Over the Rockies galas, including her recognition of being one of the ceremony as being one of the first ladies of air and space in 2008. I was honored to be at the Granby Airport in Colorado when it was renamed Emily Warner Field in 2015. Emily, while she is no longer here to mentor me, her friendship is a treasure I will keep forever. Many others were inspired by Emily, and here are their stories.
It wasn't that long ago that only men were airline pilots. All that changed in January of 1973. Emily Howell, an experienced high-time pilot from Denver, Colorado, broke the plexiglass ceiling, unlocking the door through which every female aviator who shared her dream were able to pass. What I will remember most about this history-changing lady is her warm personality, quietly pleasant, friendly, modest, and gracious. There are many professional and social life highlights I've enjoyed in her company over the past 4.5 decades. Knowing Emily as a friend, as well as a mentor and ultimate role model, was a privilege I will always treasure.
This is Sheri Wooten. Emily was a dear friend, and she would invite me to travel with her to her many aviation events. One year, the Reno Air Races requested that Emily be their Grand Marshal, along with Hugh Downs, Bob Hoover, and astronaut Hoop Gibson. We were greeted with a limo at the airport, and they treated her like royalty. They even took her out to one of the race pylons, where the race planes would scream overhead at 50 feet. One of the most memorable was the annual Living Legends of Aviation Awards, which felt like the Academy Awards of Aviation held in Beverly Hills. After walking the red carpet, she would enjoy mingling with the other honorees who were astronauts, entrepreneurs, and movie stars. Emily, being Emily, fit right in with all the legends.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, ISA+21, for organizing this tribute to Emily. Emily and I were hired a month apart, and one of my wishes all those years was that one day I would just show up at the Denver airport and hop on her airplane and fly her jump seat. I wish we had done that together. It would have been great fun. Emily was a lovely woman on many levels, and certainly a mentor to so many people. It was really an honor to know Emily, and she will be missed. Thank you.
My favorite memory of Emily is meeting her for lunch in Denver. She was so inspiring and encouraging during a difficult time in my career, and so helpful for years after. She will be greatly missed.
Gia Ditch, ladies. I'm Donna Miller, and as we celebrate the life of our Irish sister, Emily Hanrahan Howell Warner, I just wanted to let you know how proud she was of her Irish heritage. I'm sorry I'm missing you this year, but I'm really looking forward to next year when we can all raise our glasses and say Slanche in honor of Emily. So have a wonderful conference, and I'll see you next year in Dublin. Slán go fóill.
Greetings. I am Mary Bush-Shipko, and I wanted to tell you why Emily is my hero. In the early 70s, I was flying out of Miami, DC-6s and C-46s, down to the Caribbean. My chief pilot talked to National about hiring me, and the response was, "We will never hire a woman pilot." Then a coworker gave me Emily's news clipping. That inspired me to apply. I was hired with Hughes Air West in 1976, and I had the honor of meeting Emily in 1977. She is an inspiration to me. I enjoyed her grace and poise, and I will always be grateful to her. I was so honored to be in this news article with her in 1979. Thank you.
This is Terri Reinhardt. We all know Emily as a role model and a mentor, but not everyone knew how much she loved her town of Granby, Colorado, and how she wanted to share her town with everyone. In 1992, Emily invited all the ISA members and their families for a weekend of river rafting and horseback riding. After that weekend, my daughter and Emily's stepdaughter became pen pals for several years. In 2015, Granby Airport was renamed as Emily Warner Field in honor of Emily. Many of her ISA friends were there to help for the dedication. Emily was always humble and gracious when she accepted the many awards that were bestowed upon her, but I think she was especially touched by the naming of her favorite airport after her. We will never forget you, Emily, and you inspired us all. Thank you for everything. We love you.
Emily Warner Howell, to me, was my mentor and good friend for 31 years. I wrote a paper about her my freshman year in college about who inspired me to pursue a career in aviation. Emily did. Shortly after that, about a month after that, I was working at the Denver FAA under the supervision of Mick Wilson, and he called me into his office where there standing was Emily Warner. My heart raced, and I was so excited to meet my idol. And then after speaking to her, she took me under her wing and mentored me for all these years. One thing that struck the most for me was her level of humility and kindness. For me, that is something that we should all aspire to follow. For our Lord gave us our talents, and He will send us His angels to guide us, as He sent Emily to be my mentor. Now she is soaring with the angels. May her soul rest in peace, and our Lord's perpetual light shine upon her. Every flight I will make will be a tribute to her, my dear friend Emily. I saw her 9 months ago with my best friend Bonnie, and for the longest time I didn't know Emily was related to Bonnie, and that is her aunt. And when we went to see her 9 months ago at the nursing home, they had warned us and told us that she would not know who we were, and immediately she recognized us and asked my friend Bonnie how she was doing at FEMA, and then she asked what aircraft I was flying, and she recognized her Great Nees River. And before we left, she said she wanted to give us a blessing, and here's a blessing. It's called the Irish blessing. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sunshine warm upon you, your face. The rains fall soft upon your fields. Until we meet again, God hold you in the palm of his hands. And those are the last words from our dear friend Emily. She will always be in our heart and soul, and every flight we make will be a tribute to her.
This is Judy Lee. I have many fond memories of Emily over 4 decades, but I always have her smile in mind when I think of her. Emily loved her parties, so here's a small collage of her at retirement, award, and ISA parties, flanked by Beeb, Gail, Sheri, Karen, Krisan, Sinead, Marianne, Sydney, Beverley, Terri, Claudia, and me. Missing Emily and Gail, always.
Hi, I'm Sid Hale, retired Delta pilot. Over 40 years ago, I had the privilege of meeting Emily Howell Warner at my very first ISA convention in Denver, Colorado. Many conventions later, I have such fond memories of sharing good times with Emily. And as I got to know her, I learned that there could not have been a better role model for us to look up to or for future women aviators to aspire to. Aviation was her passion. She paved the way with her skill, her professionalism, her determination, and her dedication. She was kind and caring and has such a good sense of humor. She definitely won over the cockpit and all of her fellow pilots. I know speaking for ISA, I can say she was truly our hero, our inspiration, our friend. And speaking for myself, I can honestly say that she was one of the loveliest ladies I've ever met. Rest in peace, Emily. Know that you are still the leader of our flock and always will be.
I still remember when we learned in 1978 that she was attending our first convention in Las Vegas. It truly was like the Queen was going to be there. Well, when you think about it, she really was our Queen. She literally was the one who opened the door, which led to each and every one of us being hired as airline pilots. We will all remember her as being so kind, and she accepted all of her awards and accolades with such grace and humility. Thank you, Emily, for so graciously paving the way for the rest of us.
Terri Donner, UPS A300 captain. I was in for a big surprise at basic indoc when I discovered the first woman airline pilot was now a UPS 727 captain. I was ecstatic to be assigned a trip off of reserve with Emily Howell Warner on September 1st, 1989. We headed to Denver and Oakland with a male first officer. The entire trip was a lesson in diplomacy and grace. Emily handled every touchy situation with a wink and her signature grin, and she always set the tone for getting the job done as a professional. I figured out early that Emily was born the same year as my own mother, and that made our relationship very special. She invited me to join her at the Smithsonian for the 20th anniversary lecture of her being hired by Frontier Airlines. It was fun to see her speak, standing there next to her uniform from 20 years ago. I have fond memories of my whole family getting to meet Emily at the Forest of Friendship when she was inducted in, also on her 20th anniversary year. The sun shone brightly on the celebration to rename the Granby, Colorado airport Emily Howell Warner Airport in 2015. And later that year was the red carpet experience with Emily, attending her induction into the National Aviation Hall of Fame in Dayton, Ohio. Emily will always be remembered for the way that she made people feel. I owe a debt of gratitude to Emily for the way that she won over commercial aviation for all women.
Hi, my name is Karen Nathan. I was hired by United Airlines in 1979 and attended my first ISA convention in Denver in 1980, where I had the great privilege of meeting Emily Howell Warner for the first time. And of course I was in awe, just like so many other women. Emily always opened the door for all of us in 1973, so getting hired in 79 was really only 6 years after that. But more meaningful to me even than that was asking Emily to present me with my captain's plaque. 12 years later, in 1992, Emily presented me with my captain's plaque for my first flight as a captain with United Airlines. Over the years in the 90s and early 2000s, I got to know Emily more as a friend by living in Denver. And part of the way that came about was due to what was called Emily's Lunches. She started those mostly for the flight instructors at the training center where she was working as a FAA inspector. But it evolved. She said to Krisan one day, let's just invite everybody, all the girls. That turned into a monthly luncheon, various restaurants, and sometimes in Emily's house. I think my fondest memories are being at Emily's house with her in her element. She had plaques and awards and everything covered. All her walls had to go down into the hallway, into the garage. She even had her garage floor painted as 3-5 left and 3-5 right. I just loved seeing her there. She never really wanted the limelight. She just wanted to fly. And I think that the best legacy that we could leave for Emily is to pass that on to the next generation of women pilots and inspire them to follow with what Emily has started.
Now that the door has been opened to women, I look forward to welcoming those who follow the path to an airline pilot career. And at this time, I'd really like all of my women pilots who are here tonight to stand up and wave. There you go. I'm real proud of them.